The public safety meeting is now called to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Bosley?
Present.
Alderman Vaquero? Present. Alderman Cone? Alderman Carter?
Present.
Alderman Coter? Alderman Spencer?
Present.
Alderman Green?
Present.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Thanks. It is unfortunate that the chair couldn't be here today, or the vice chair, so I'm like 3 chairs down. So I was asked to chair, so gonna make this a smooth meeting. So the first bill that we have up is Board Bill 280, which is sponsored by Alderman Boyd.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Sounds good. Chairman Carter, members of the committee. Board Bill 280 has to do with the firefighter pension, but before I proceed, I would like to get consideration for Board Bill 280 committee substitute.
You gonna make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Call the roll.
Alderman Bosley?
No questions.
No, they got to adopt the committee sub.
We're taking up the committee sub.
Oh, aye.
Aye. Alderman Vaquero?
Aye.
Alderman Cone? Alderman Coter? Alderwoman Spencer? Alderwoman Green? Chairman Carter?
Aye.
We have 5 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, we had a kind of an educational seminar on this bill. We had a technical expert. We had witness testimony from the lawyers representing Local 73. And after the meeting, we agreed to get together and go over the issues, you know, that Local 73 had with the bill and come to a compromise. I'm excited to say we came to a compromise on the bill. And again, just in summary, the bill is put forth as technical corrections so that we can become a qualified plan with the IRS standards. There was one sticking point in the bill that I will bring out and be on record. There was a concern about the educational benefits being taken out the bill. But what we did is we added some language which will allow the IRS basically to make that determination. If they say that, you know, it cannot be part of the plan, then there's directions that the pension board shall remove that. Okay. There was also a major concern about the pension board having the authority to make administrative corrections based on IRS standards. All of that language was taken out. So I think, you know, the bill's been crafted and put together in a way that everybody can accept it. It's what I call the win-win. My commitment is that if the educational piece comes out of the bill, that I will work to sponsor a bill to somehow provide that educational benefit to the retired firefighters under a special fund.
Is that it?
Thank you.
All right. We're going to take questions from the committee. Alderman Bosley. Any questions? Alderman Vaccaro, any questions?
What about? No question. Okay, no, I have a comment. I wanted to thank the sponsor and the president of 73 for working this out. I've heard from everybody, and my understanding, it was a lot of work, and I do appreciate it. It makes my vote a lot easier. And anything you do, if it comes out to put back some sort of educational fund, I want to be with you on it as a co-sponsor. So anyway, thank you so much for taking all the effort to work it out.
Welcome. Thank you.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to also commend the groups for communicating and getting this worked out. There was also a question last week about widow benefits. Were those amended in any way?
The widow benefits had to do with clarifying that if the widow remarries, then all the benefits cease.
I'm sorry, what was
The
that?
benefits stop. If they're no longer qualified to receive the
And that was
benefits,
just a
and they would be
clarification.
unqualified if they remarry.
During their
So it was
widow
just basically kind of cleaning that up.
Gotcha.
Correct. Okay.
Great. I think those are the main questions, and so I'm really grateful and glad to hear we've come to a solution. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks. Alderwoman Green.
questions. Thank you for working this out.
Okay, and Alderwoman Flowers, did you have any questions?
No, thank
Okay. We have two speakers that want to speak on the pro side of this bill, so we're going to first call up Demetrius Alfred.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Demetrius Alfred, President of Local 73, representing all firefighters, EMS, and dispatchers in the city of St. Louis. And as Alderman Boyd said, we went to the table, and a lot of changes were made to our satisfactory. So we're speaking in favor of the bill as it's written now. The only caveat is I'd like to get it ratified on my floor, which I don't perceive to be any problem. But as a union representative, I have to take it to the membership and to be voted on. Our meeting is Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. I will be speaking in favor of the board bill to get it ratified. But other than that, I think the agreement was made and we're satisfied.
Thanks.
Yeah, any questions?
Any questions for?
My only question would be, I assume that you're okay with us passing this out of committee today,
Yes, ma'am.
and then we would, it would go to the floor next week after you pass it through your.
Yes, ma'am. And then next Friday, I know it'll be on the floor, second read, and if anything came out from the
Sure.
floor that was negative, I'd be presenting it to you guys, but I don't foresee that. Like I said, I'll be speaking in favor of it, and we're gonna,
Great.
I think
Okay.
the right thing was done, so.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Any more questions for Mr. Alfred?
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Alderman Boyd, you are free to close.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and I'd also like to express my thanks to the president of Local 73, who did a yeoman's job. I mean, he really fights hard for his membership. And with that, I'd like to ask for your most favorable consideration on Board Bill 280 Committee Substitute.
Would anyone love to make a
We
motion?
make that motion that we pass Board Bill 283, committee sub out with a do pass recommendation.
Clerk,
And
call the
previous
roll.
roll.
Well, we didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Any objections to previous roll? Seeing none? Clerk? Passed out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to hear from our Police Chief, Sam Dotson, about the body cameras and real-time intelligence center. Chief?
Good morning, how are you? So I'm prepared to talk about the body camera program. I talked to Chairman Kennedy about postponing that conversation about the real-time crime center till he has a chance to take a tour and visit, but I'd be happy to come back and talk about that in the future. So today, I brought a PowerPoint presentation to help kind of walk through and to give some understanding of what we're doing in the Metropolitan Police Department. So there's no secret that I'm a big supporter of body cameras. I think body cameras have a role in law enforcement. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department currently is engaged in a pilot program with about 30 sergeants, a 90-day pilot. We're just about at the end. The goal of the program was to do a couple of things. One, to prepare the agency for a conversation about body cameras, to understand the technology a little bit better, and to see what hurdles and challenges that we'll have to face. I chose sergeants because the Police Officers Association has a collective bargaining agreement that would require me to negotiate body cameras with them. The sergeants currently do not have an agreement, so therefore I did not have to negotiate even the pilot with them. So if you don't mind, we'll step through the PowerPoint. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I supplied Alderman Kennedy with a copy of our special order that we're using during the pilot program. Was that circulated? Do you have that?
Yeah, he emailed it out.
So we're working off of a pilot program, and we'll go to the first slide. So as I talked about, to familiarize the department with the technology, and I brought some cameras I'll show you in just a little bit, so with the two models that we're testing. To field test the technology so I can have some real-world experiences in the city of St. Louis to better understand what works, what doesn't work, and what our challenges are. To develop a test and a policy, and we've developed our sample policy, our draft policy, which we'll continue to critique and evaluate. And to better understand, and this is a key, to better understand the technical, IT, and data requirements of a body-worn camera program. So the cost of a body-worn camera program is not in the purchase of the technology or the hardware. It's in the ongoing maintenance and storage of the videos that are captured or recorded. There are retention issues, there are IT issues, there are tagging issues, there are legal issues, there's testimony issues, there's a variety of things. So what I'm learning in our 90-day pilot program is the technology, the front-end cameras are basically the same. The policies around the country have a lot of similarities, but where departments really miss the mark is they don't invest into the back-end solutions to make the camera program successful, which includes people and selecting the right technology. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So there are two models of body cameras that we're testing, and I'll pass them both so you can see them. Each model has a benefit and each model has detractions. So the first model that I'll show you is a camera that's worn on the center mass of the chest. It catches about a 170-degree angle view. It buffers. It doesn't record continuously, but it buffers. And when you activate the camera, it picks up the previous 30 seconds and then records until you stop. Each model has a built-in microphone, so you catch audio along with it. The second model that we're testing is one that is mounted on eyeglasses and goes where your head goes. It has about a 110 or so degree view. The difference between the two, this one is always looking where your center mass is. This one, if you turn your head, goes to where your head is. So as you can see, this one is going to respond with your eyes. This one catches more. This one goes to where your eyes. This one's more stable. This one gets torn off of officers' eyes and faces more often. So I'll kind of pass these to you just so you got a chance to take a look at them. So those are the two most popular models, the two most popular that are used. One that goes center of the chest that always looks forward. The other one that moves with your head side to side. The one that you wear on eyeglasses gets pulled away more frequently. You lose video. What is this? So next slide. The 90-day program involved 3 groups of 24 sergeants. Yep. So we did 24 sergeants for 30 days, 24 sergeants for 30 days, and a third group for 30 days. We put it in a variety of assignments in our district patrols, the officers that ride your neighborhoods, as well as some specialized units like special operations, like mobile reserve, like SWAT. It covered all 3 watches, so we could have an opportunity to see what the video looked like in low light situations and daylight situations. And we talked about the 2 models that we deployed that you're looking at now. We've got our demo policy, our test policy, which you've had a chance to review. We'll go to the next slide. We began the 3rd phase on February 10th. We'll be done in the next week or so with that. And what we will do then is provide an opportunity for public comment about body cameras, about our policy, about a variety of things, and we're in the process of finalizing that process right now. Once we're done with that, we will create a final report. And then I will sit down with the St. Louis Police Officers Association and talk about the experiences that we've had, and if the data and our experience plays out, as I believe it will, I'll say that I believe the Metropolitan Police Department needs body-worn cameras. Just to give you an idea of cost, each of the units you have now ranges between $400 and $500 approximately. So imagine if we bought 800 or 1,000 units, to give you an idea of the cost. Let's just round numbers, 1,000 units times $500, quickly to see. I've been working with Paul Payne, the budget director, to identify one-time money for purchase of those. I think we have, if we decide to move forward with the program after we negotiate it with the SLPOA. Realizing the life expectancy of those pieces of equipment are 3 to 5 years. So in 3 to 5 years, we'll have to revisit that and come up with a replacement. But the true cost is going to be in the monthly storage fees if we go to a cloud-based solution for the cameras, video that is captured. Solutions for storage range between about $40 and $100 per camera per month. $40 to $100 per camera per month. It will also require additional staffing in the Metropolitan Police Department to manage the hardware, to manage the data, to manage the volume of videos that are recorded. Next slide. This is key. Evidence.com is an example of a platform that TASER has, which is really key. I talked about front-end technology is very similar. Cameras are very similar. The back end, something that interfaces with our CAD system or computer-aided dispatching system, something that interfaces with our report writing system, something that would interface with the court system is very, very important. If we don't do our due diligence on that piece, it becomes very labor intensive, very time intensive, and it takes people resources. So we're looking at cloud storage solutions for body-worn cameras. How do we collect and upload the data from any device? There's an automatic transfer feature that you dock this, you drop it into a cradle at the area station, and the videos automatically upload. We're going to work on managing and keeping the information organized. If you can imagine, just you have your cell phones, you take pictures, keeping your pictures and your videos categorized and organized. Imagine 1,000 pieces of equipment out every day capturing multiple events a day. It's a big deal, and it's important. If we miss that piece, in my opinion, the body camera worn program is destined to fail. And then the ability to retrieve information quickly for prosecution. The next slide. So we provided training to our officers about how to use the cameras, how to interact with evidence.com, information about technical assistance. This is actually part of a presentation that I've used for our officers. We talked about our special order, so every officer was keen on the special order. Go to the next one. Here's one that I think I'm going to spend a few minutes on, because I wanted to talk about when a camera records and when it doesn't record. So if we recorded continuously, imagine 8 hours a day video from 1,000 different units, exponentially the storage would exceed our capabilities very quickly. Most agencies, if not all, go to a system that has trigger events, where the user is required to activate the camera. We've looked at San Diego's policy, which I think has a model policy. They're one of the leaders in body-worn cameras. We looked at recommendations from the Police Executive Research Forum, from the Department of Justice, and about 30 other agencies around the country, and came up with our sample policy. Camera position is important, I already talked about. Here are the mandatory events that are required triggers. So if an officer is engaged in a traffic stop, they're required to activate their camera. If they're engaged in enforcement-related activities, they're required to engage their camera. Field interviews, detentions, arrests, searches, when they're transporting prisoners, when suspect interviews occur, and when we're assisting other law enforcement or other city employees. That is that the person wearing the camera is responsible for activating the camera. Realizing that the camera has a 30-second buffer, it'll catch 30 seconds of video before the button is activated, but does not have audio in the first 30 seconds. After that, it remains continuous recording until the officer stops the event. Each camera has a battery life of about 12 hours and can hold actually up to 12 hours of video if we need to. There are certain events that we've prohibited recording from. Roll call is one of them, because we talk about operations and individuals that may or may not be wanted for crimes. Non-duty related activities. You can't take this to your son or daughter's softball game and record their softball game. Lineups, there are legal reasons not to use the body camera during lineups. Crime briefings, where we're talking about specific operational plans, and dealing with confidential informants are a couple of the incidents that are precluded from recording. I wanted to bring a couple of videos so you get a chance to see what the videos look like. The first video that we're going to look at is a chest-mounted video. The interaction is of nothing particular. I just wanted you to see the quality of the video. I wanted you to see what it looks like. The incident is just one that we randomly selected and has no real bearing on the conversation except to look at the video. This is a chest-mounted camera. We'll illustrate the 30-second buffering with no audio, and then you can see the circumstances that get clicked on. And this is a nighttime view. So the officer activated. So you hear the audio that's recorded from the camera. This, if you hand me that one. This is what's recording that right now. All right, so you get an idea of what the video looks like at night with a flashlight. You get an idea of the audio. Yeah. So, yeah, that's fine. So this next video is one that was going to be recorded with up high. So you see how when the officer's eyes look down, when his head looks down, the camera goes down. So this is one of the pros or cons, depending. It looks where the officer's attention is, but it misses a lot of the field of view. All right. So you see the quality of both cameras is equal. The audio recordings are good, but it comes down to really when center mass, you're always looking forward. Up here, you look where the officer's eyes go.
I have a question real quick. Chief, I have a question real quick. So I noticed there were multiple officers at that scene. So I would assume that there'll be multiple angles of, if there's 3 or 4 officers and they all have body cameras on all at the same time, so will they store that as one?
So that's the key, and that's a great question. I talked about that evidence.com feature. What that has the ability to do is basically tag all of the videos together to one incident. So, you know, it would be report, I'm making up, report number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 6 videos associated with it. So if you don't have a strong back end, you have to go out and do that manually. As you can imagine, any human enterprise is always challenged with clerical errors. So finding a system that has a strong back end that can link all of that. So you're absolutely correct. There are scenarios where you could have multiple officers recording the same event from different angles. And so think about the storage exponentially goes up too. If you deploy 800 or 1,000 units, you've got 3 or 4 officers at a stop. You've got 3 or 4 officers recording the same event. So yeah, it becomes a very big issue for storage. So we'll skip the next couple of slides. These are just data slides, just to give you an idea. Once I think we have a fully deployed system based on the data that we're seeing, we're going to do something about a 500,000 gigs of data every year on a conservative side. So 500,000 gigs of data on the conservative side every year, just to give you an idea. And that's based on about 800 cameras on 24 minutes per call and a variety of things. I think it's a conservative estimate. I think we'll exceed that considerably. So we'll go through the next ones, a couple. Those are the high points. Well, lessons learned so far, and realizing we're not done with our final evaluation yet. But I just kind of wanted to touch on a point. Officers prefer the chest-mounted camera to the glass-mounted so far. In our early feedback from officers, because during a running, the glasses fall off. During a struggle, the glasses fall off. So the chest-mounted camera seems to be the most popular so far. Cloud storage of data seems to be key. Managing that server space, being able to archive and retrieve it on our own. There are solutions out there, but they have a price associated with them. We talked about the back-end solution. There's obviously conversation in Jefferson City about body cameras. There's a considerable conversation going on about sunshine laws and what should be releasable and not releasable. I'm going to let Jefferson City sort that out. I think we all agree contacts with victims are probably something we don't want released into the public. Contacts with juveniles. Right now, the way the law is set up, if we get a call to Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house, we wear a body camera in that house. Mrs. Jones, their next-door neighbor, could sunshine that video to see what happened inside that house. I think the technology is far exceeding the legislative solutions right now, and I think laws have to catch up with the technology right now. I think body-worn cameras also would do a lot to improve confidence around the policing agencies. I think any time that we have video, it adds credibility to the conversation. If officers act correctly, I think it shows their support, the community support of officers. If officers act inappropriately, I think it makes us very clear and quick to deal with those issues. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I know I just wanted to give you kind of a high-level overview. I'll finish with next steps. We'll finish our 90-day pilot. We're working on a process for public comment right now. After public comment is done, we'll write a final report. If we decide that body cameras are the way the Metropolitan Police Department shall go, I will engage in conversations with the St. Louis Police Officers Association, and ultimately we'll work on a solution.
Thanks, Chief. I guess I can start with questions, right? Okay, so my number one, my first question, I have a long list. But my first question is, how long was the buffer mode? Did you say it was 30 seconds?
The buffers on these cameras are set for 30 seconds. So they catch 30 seconds before recording is initiated.
Oh, okay.
No audio in that 30 seconds, but just video.
Okay, no audio, okay. And has there been any instances where non-enforcement encounters should have been recorded, but they weren't for some reason?
This is a human enterprise, and just as we have to teach people how to drive a car in pursuits, we have to teach people how to arrest people, we have to teach people how to use their firearm, we have to program them and teach them how to activate their body cameras. That's why this is a pilot program. I see officers that successfully activate it every day. I see some officers that struggle with it every day. It's a learning tool. Once a program is implemented, if it is implemented, then it will be our policy that on those types of events that I listed out, a traffic stop, an arrest, a detention, that every time that occurs, the camera should be activated.
Okay, back to the buffering. Can that buffering be adjusted, or is that's the standard?
That's something I'll have to ask the manufacturers of the cameras for. It's a technical question I just don't know the answer to.
Okay.
Well, you're answering a question, I just want to tell you a little bit of a story about an incident that happened in San Diego. Having to activate the cameras yourself is a conscious step that officers have to take. There were a couple of officers in San Diego, who I like their policy a lot, were motorcycle officers, and they came in a situation and gunfire, and they returned gunfire before they activated their body cameras. I think we always have to say safety of the public, safety of the police officers come first. I always want to catch as much as I can in video, but I don't want anybody to get hurt because they activated their camera instead of trying to protect somebody's life.
Right, okay. When does the transition to intelligence gathering occur? And what I did with my question, I went off of what Terry sent us, and I just wrote it. So that's in I1.A of that, right, of the special order. And does that intelligence gathering include talking to witnesses?
It could. What bullet point did you say?
That was I.1A. Does everybody have that?
Oh, here, I've got a copy. Here, I've got a couple extra copies. Really, what that is, it's doing what police officers do. It's an investigation.
Okay.
It's an investigation.
Okay. And in I-1B, why was that strongly encouraged but not required? And I could talk about it now.
I-1B.
So that would be to inform citizens that they're being recorded.
Yeah. I-1B, it says that officers are strongly encouraged to inform citizens they are being recorded in an effort to de-escalate potential conflicts.
So, again, this is a draft policy that we took. There's no reason not to, but again, if it's applicable. If you're in a large crowd, you're obviously not going to be able to alert everyone that they're being recorded. So, again, this is something that I think we have to wait for the laws to catch up on as well, about when it's appropriate and not appropriate to record.
Right. And I have more questions, but I'm going to come back to me, but I'm going to let some of the other committee members ask questions. So first, Alderman Bosley, questions? Do you have any questions? No questions? Alderman Vaccaro, questions?
Not really, but I realize this has to go through the association because they have the right to negotiate that from their contract as it came into local control.
Under their collective bargaining agreement, there is something called the Use Committee, Uniform Safety and Equipment Committee. And under that provision of the collective bargaining agreement, they have a right to sit at the table and talk about equipment, technologies, things like body cameras. So yes.
Yeah, I was just curious, and how do you see that going?
I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't want to. What I can say, though, is I think the Metropolitan Police Department realizes the value of body cameras. I certainly do. And that's why we've started this pilot program. Some agencies have pilot programs that go on for years. I wanted to be very clear, 90 days start to finish, have an opportunity for public comment, and then come up with a final report and recommendation and move forward. I believe in the project so much that I've already talked to Paul Payne, the budget director, about identifying potential sources for purchases if we get to that point.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Alderman Kotar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for being here. And sorry I was late. I was down at Soulard dealing with some incidents. Could you, and I may have missed this, I know this is a pilot program. Right now, just sort of, are your sergeants wearing cameras attached to their vests? Are they glasses? Is it a combination of those things?
We have two models that we're testing.
Oh, you've got
And
them
so,
here.
I don't know if you saw the videos. One was recorded on a camera that's mounted center chest. The others are so they're about 50-50 divided.
Okay.
Both have their pros, both have their cons.
So far, which model do the officers seem to prefer?
In the feedback that we've received so far from the sergeants, which is not complete yet,
Yeah.
but the center mounted chest seems to be the most popular.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for being here. It sounds like we're gonna kind of rely on Jeff City to kind of determine public access to data and those kind of policies around there. Am I hearing that correctly?
Well, what I have to do, I have to be responsive to the Sunshine Law.
Sure,
So
sure.
really, as they address the issues in the Sunshine Law. But I think they realize the urgency of this now, and I think Jefferson City is addressing it as quickly as Jefferson City can address anything.
Well, sure. Is the police department going to weigh in on any of that, on any of the lawmaking regarding that?
Certainly, we have an opportunity to do. I'll give you Sam Dotson's opinion that cameras are tools. I think that they help improve confidence, and with the exception of victims and maybe ongoing criminal investigations, I think a lot of the data, a lot of the video should be made available. So I would rather err on that side. I don't think it's right if Mrs. Smith gets to look at Mrs. Jones's house. I think those are things that we have to deal with. But I would err on the side of making more available rather than less.
Going back to the pilot program, can you kind of walk us through how many officers and what ranks were involved in the pilot program?
Yeah, because of the collective bargaining agreement, I would have had to negotiate even a pilot with the Police Officers Association. So sergeants are in the pilot program. We're testing 24 cameras. We're doing 90 days, 3 30-day periods. 24 sergeants in each 30-day period. We're on the last 30 now. So we've touched about 75 officers, sergeants throughout the department with the pilot program. And so our feedback is going to be based on the experience of those 75 sergeants.
Gotcha. And with the data storage, how long are we storing the data?
So that's one of the things that we're working with right now. In our pilot program, we're planning on 13 months. Once we get clarity about that, again, catching 500,000 gig a year, you're going to run into issues. There are state retention laws that will guide us on this right now. So, but for the pilot, our plan was to keep it for 13 months.
So the fee quoted earlier, $40 per camera per month.
Between 40 and 100, depending on the solutions.
So that is including some long-term data storage?
That's correct, yes.
And so the cameras that we took a look at today, are they both? I didn't take a look at who the manufacturers are. Are they the same manufacturer?
Both cameras are TASER products.
And are we looking at other manufacturers?
Certainly, when we go out to a true RFP process, everybody will have an opportunity. I think at the beginning, I was trying to make it. I understand body cameras. I understand the limitations of the technology. What we were trying to do was find out as an agency what we needed to do to get ready for it. I think a strong policy. I also think that back-end solution, that integration into our computer-aided dispatching and our report writing system is key. We can try a Panasonic camera, an NEC camera. They're all going to have the same experience to the user. It's really the back end that I think we have to get right.
Okay. With turning them on, can you tell us, kind of walk us through what kind of process is required to turn those on?
I don't think these are charged, but the fact that they're not charged doesn't matter. So, oops,
I think one of them was, it was on.
yeah.
Does it record
So
this?
it's just kind of powering up
Trying to
right now.
record.
It's kind of powering up right now like your computer would, and it will beep in a second. Their batteries are weak. So you wear it center mass in your chest. There is a large button right there. You push, you hold, it will give an audio acknowledgement and flash a light up here so the user knows that it's recording. It'll record until the user does, again, a manual touch to turn the video off.
Gotcha.
So it buffers, these are set to buffer 30 seconds. Again, I don't know what the total capability is. 30 seconds with no audio, you push this, it starts recording with audio.
And there's no way to turn them on remotely, or, you know,
So there are processes right now, and I'm not aware of anything that's commercially available, but there are people that are looking to create systems that would tie it to a light bar in a car, would tie it to your weapon on the side of your hip. I don't know of any system that's commercially available. I think that's an option that we will see going out into the future, but that does take some of the human element out of it.
So one of the issues in the policy that was provided to us, and I realize it's a pilot policy, but was that, you know, citizens will not regularly be recorded in just sort of communication with residents, and recognition that it would kind of maybe inhibit some conversations and things like that. Is it clear to people, residents or citizens otherwise, when the unit is recording and when it is not?
So what you don't want to do is have a big red target on the center of your chest.
Sure.
And so from the front view, there is no indication that the camera is recording. There's only a flashing light on the top that
Okay.
would indicate that it's recording. I would not put a red dot on a police officer's chest to show that their video is recording. It would create a target for them.
Okay.
So there is no outward sign except for the flashing light on top, which is visible to the user that it's recording.
Gotcha. One of a curiosity I had here, the cameras cannot be used inside of jails. Can you help us understand that?
There are rights, prisoners have rights as well. To kind of as a side note to that, we have installed in our holdover facilities, they're being installed, one's done, the other two are in process, video surveillance cameras in our holdover facility to make sure that we capture that in accordance with what can and can't be done.
Sure.
So we're trying to, I have a workaround, if you will, in the area station holdover. So Central Patrol is complete. The other two stations are in process right now to install video cameras in the holdovers.
One of the policies was related to transporting prisoners, and that all transportation of prisoners must be recorded. But can you kind of walk me through how, if your prisoner is sort of located behind you in a vehicle and your camera is pointed this way, how that might be useful?
Well, again, no system is foolproof. I'll give you an example. Right now, we have about 100 police cars that have in-car mounted systems. The in-car mounted system looks forward and has a camera that monitors the back seat. Those systems are more expensive than the body cameras. So we've deployed those systems over the last 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, and have about 100 in service right now. You're correct. The camera only catches what is in front of it. You do get audio, but again, I'm looking for a foolproof solution.
Sure.
It's about, and my last recollection is it's a little under $5,000 per police car to do an in-car camera system. These are about $500, so they're a fraction of the cost.
So those in-car cameras, I assume we're going to be integrating the data storage in a similar manner. Are we already contracting with a data storage management company to?
So we use an online product to store the data right now for the in-car cameras. We would be able, I believe, the conversation that I've had is to be able to bring the body camera data and the in-car camera data together.
And so the policies, I'm not familiar with the in-car camera policy. Is it similar to this, or?
It's obviously not as detailed because obviously you're not going to take an in-car camera into some situations.
Sure.
The in-car cameras, the way they're mounted, trigger when a police car goes over a certain speed, when the light bar is activated at a variety of events. So there is some automatic in that when the lights come on, the camera starts to record.
Okay. And then my last question for now would be, as it relates to tampering or losing the cameras. And can you kind of walk us through how we're ensuring that the cameras don't get tampered with or, you know?
So the order says you can't do it.
Sure.
But we all know that people on occasion
Well, we're
have
all guilty,
accidents.
sure.
Um,
You could lose
There's and it's a little bit on the technical side. Each video has a time stream that runs consistently through it. So you're going to know if a video was edited. These, you can't plug them into a computer and do like you would with an AVI file. It's proprietary to this. It gets docked, it gets uploaded. There's always the chance of losing one, damaging one. I understand that. They don't dock remotely. They have to be placed into a cradle to dock. You dock it at the end of your shift. So, I mean, there's always, again, the human error, the human enterprise into that.
Thank you, Chief, and that's all the questions I have at the moment.
Thank you,
And I
Alderwoman.
apologize, I have to step out.
Okay. Alderwoman Green.
Thank you. I'm going to walk through, I think, some of the policy document here. I have some specific questions to a few things that are in it. Starting with Section F, the camera position. Did you tell us how many were worn and what position? How many were there?
About 50-50 in the trial.
Okay.
About 50-50 in the trial.
And you said that the ones that were worn in the center of the chest worked better than the head because they fell off.
I know I said that there were pros and cons to both. The sergeants that are in the program tend to like the center worn cameras better.
Is there a difference in kind of the audio pickup of either one of the models?
You saw both cameras, so there was,
No difference?
yeah.
Okay. Looking at kind of some of the privacy concerns in Section H, it says private citizens do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy when talking with the police officers during the scope of an officer's official duties. Would it be advisable that some things are able to be redacted, like, you know, how we can redact license plates in certain situations and stuff like that? Is there certain things inside people's homes that, you know, children or pictures of family members or?
I think that's what I was saying. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think we need guidance instead of at a state level and not just at a city level, but at a state level. Because the laws that apply to us are state laws right now.
Right. So then is the intent to not put a program full into place before those state laws are in place, or what is the timing on that?
I think those are issues that we're going to have to struggle with and balance about with the benefit of a program versus those questions out there. I don't have a clear answer for that, and I think if we lined up 6 different people, we'd have 6 different opinions.
And then kind of under H2 there, where the officers are not required to initiate or cease recording an event, situation, or circumstances solely at the demand of a citizen. I'm thinking about, you know, a situation with maybe a domestic violence victim or something like that who maybe does not want to be on camera. How does that?
So we as a society can't be schizophrenic about it. We have to pick a course that we want. And so if we have a policy in there that says a citizen can say turn off the camera because why? Again, a domestic situation may provide evidence for court. And so certainly the camera. So it's very complicated, and I don't have the answers to this. But what I don't want to do is start to carve out numerous exceptions that we have to come up with a policy. I hear victim statements, absolutely. But if we're in a home dealing with a domestic abuse situation, maybe we do want a camera on. So it's complicated.
Right. Okay. And I think that, you know, where the sunshine law is what complicates that a little bit more, because I can also see a situation where, you know, a domestic violence victim is fine being on camera, but then knowing that that possibly could end up out in a public domain.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think recording is good. I think it's the release that we have to have the conversation about and what's releasable and not. So instead of focusing on when the camera should be on or not, I think the focus has to be on the legislation.
Okay. And then H3, officers and supervisors involved in the investigation of a complaint against a member of the department must inform complainants and complaint witnesses that they are being recorded. How does that play with, let's see, then J1, where a victim and witness interviews will generally not be recorded?
So I view H3 as when a complaint is made against a member. So we record interviews now using a variety of tools, and the individuals are made aware of it. I think if somebody's making a complaint against a police officer, the intent of this was to document that complaint verbally or verbatim so they understand and are investigating the complaint correctly. Again, draft policy, we're open to comment and feedback about that.
Into section I1B, it says strongly encouraged. What does strongly encouraged mean?
Exactly what it says, strongly encouraged.
So it's very, that's very vague.
So again, an opportunity, I think somebody asked the question, if there's a large group of people, you're not going to be able to tell everybody, hey, if we're having a one-on-one conversation, hey, my body camera's on, I really would like to tone this situation down, I'd really like to get you to comply with what the directives are. So again, it's on a case-by-case basis, and there is no policy that we can draft that will be able to anticipate every scenario and be able to be applied in the same way. So again, body cameras are a strong tool, a great tool, a good tool, but they expose the officers just as they expose the community.
Then going back to
And kind of just go back to that one just for a second. I think the goal that we always talk about is to de-escalate a situation. So I'm really a little bit confused about your question. If by being able to bring a situation down by telling somebody they're being recorded, isn't that the outcome that we're trying to get to?
I agree, it's
I just want to make sure I understood.
Right, I don't take issue with the end result, it's just the vagueness of strongly encouraged. I could strongly encourage Alderman Carter to, write something down, that doesn't mean he will.
Well, what it does is, I think it strongly encourages the officers, not strongly encourage you, hey, you're on a body camera, you need to calm down. Strongly encourages the officers to use the camera as the tool that they can be to de-escalate a situation.
Right.
But again, I'm sorry.
For is more of, they shall do this or they must do this, and there are certain situations that we recognize that maybe that's not possible, but the standard is that you will do this, and then recognize that there are certain times where that may not happen. Strongly encouraged to me leaves a lot of opening to not do something.
And I think the other of that, if you tell them they have to and they don't, we're going to criticize them for it. So again, the outcome is de-escalation. So we're strongly encouraging you to de-escalate. So I hear you, and I just don't want to get caught up in wordsmithing to create a policy that ties everybody's hands.
Then going into section J, talking about some of the discretionary reporting, especially with victims of domestic violence. Have in this process you talked with any domestic violence organizations or to get kind of what their feedback is or their thought is on this?
So we actually have victim advocates that are embedded with the police department, and we work with them through our sex crimes, our child abuse, our domestic abuse response team. And so they're well aware of this. And again, any feedback that they have, and I'll make sure that they have an opportunity, but they actually work with us every day, making sure that we're sticking up for the rights of victims, we're advocating for them. I have not heard any complaints or conversation from them, but I will make sure that we've circled with them and they're comfortable with this.
Okay. Have you decided at all allowing, victims at a later date to be able to, decide that they want certain things redacted or?
I think we could start down a very slippery slope if we start crafting a policy that allows people to edit their spontaneous utterances or their statements. I think you have Brady issues, I think you have discovery issues, I think you have a variety of things.
And how currently are you assessing the program? How are you getting the feedback from the officers on how this is working?
We're in the process of doing surveys that the officers give us their feedback in. And so all of that information will be digested into a final report.
What types of questions are you asking, or what type of data are you tracking?
Basically, it's a rather lengthy survey. A variety of things from describe your interaction with the public. Do you think the public interaction was different because you wore a camera? Was your behavior different? Tell us about the triggering event, a variety of things. So, and they're usually on, it's on a scale. So tell us, and then a place for free comment.
Okay. To this point, have you had any, or have you been able to analyze any of that data?
I was going to wait until the end of the 90 days because like any group, the first group may have been early adopters or they may have been the resistors. The last group may be the early adopters or the resistors. I wanted to wait until we had all the data to start to draw any conclusions from it. So we've been collecting it from each individual group, so each of those sets of 24 sergeants in each of those sets, but we're not doing the data analyzation until we're done.
I think that's all my questions for now.
Thank you. And Alderman Cone, we'll get your questions as soon as you get in and get settled. Alderwoman Flowers, do you have any questions? Okay. Alderwoman Howard, any questions?
I do not.
Alderman Arnowitz, any questions? All right. Well, I'll ask a few more while Alderman Cone gets. Oh, no questions? All right. So I had a few more, and I'll type it up. So what happened if an officer turns off his camera? Do we have any policy prepared for that, just in terms of disciplinary actions?
When we're in a final policy, we will. Just as you saw, we had an officer who turned off an in-car camera probably about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. Turned off an in-car camera before I thought it was appropriate. That officer was disciplined. So in the final policy, in this policy, again, it's a pilot program. We talk about keeping the camera on. There will be consequences if the policy isn't followed, yes.
Okay. And just to go back to the handout on K8A, and I'm trying to find it myself because was this policy new? Because, and I can't even find it, but I'm pretty sure that it's about the demonstrations. But was that crafted more so because of Ferguson, or is that something that's standard in other policies that other cities?
I did not have any specific conversations about this section relevant to any protests here. Again, it was a conglomeration of policies from all over. So there's nothing specific in there that I would say would be tied back to any of the protests that we've had here. It's more of a generic policy.
Okay. And in N1C, you stated, or they stated in here that, hold on, let me find it, I'm sorry. That officers will select the retention categories that most accurately fit the recording. What were the retention categories that we created?
Without having it specifically in front of me, evidence, traffic stop, public interaction, field interview. So it had a variety of choices because each of them, obviously evidence, we're going to hold on to the disposition of a court case, traffic stop till disposition of the traffic incident. So that was really what the pull downs were in that, without having them right in front of me.
Okay, and in P4, it says, depending on giving permissions, digital evidence can be, hold on, I'm sorry, my phone is going off, can be viewed and or copied from this location. And so my question was, what are the various types of permission that will be given for this to be copied?
In the policy, an officer cannot make a copy of an event and give to the media. But if the department decides that there's value in giving it to the Board of Aldermen, giving it to a media outlet, certainly there has to be copies made for court, for, we get lots of sunshine requests for auto accidents, if the body camera caught something that was discoverable. So a variety of situations that would allow, the department would be allowed lawfully to provide the video, but it does not allow an individual member of the department to record the video without the permission of the agency.
Okay. And in S1, this is my last one, actually. In this, have they considered classifying the data as incident reports with relevant redactions?
So that's something that we're looking at. Again, the challenge with that is a traffic stop might not have an incident report associated with it. A pedestrian stop might not have an incident report associated with it. So we're working on that, and that's why that back end is so important, to be able to tie a traffic stop to a pedestrian stop, to a police report, to whatever it needs to be tied to. So that's one of those things that is the learning curve, and we hope to get more information during the pilot program about how specific or that needs to be.
Okay. I know what, I'll take that back. This is my last question. The policy that current stands, it says that that an officer will be able to review the camera before writing their report. Is that what happens in the other cities that have used it, or is this something new that we threw
I
in
think
there?
cities around the country do it both ways. Some allow officers to review the video for clarity, some don't. It just so happens that the policies we looked at did. I think if we get a better product out of it, if the officers have a chance to look and maybe I didn't get the license plate, I got the license plate wrong, I remember some fact of it, so I think video is a tool that law enforcement can use.
Okay. Alderman Cone has a question or two, or 10.
Hi, Chief.
How are
Good
you?
morning. I just have some concerns. I certainly appreciate why we're implementing the policy. I, of course, have some issues in regards to privacy concerns as well. So, I'm working with you and the department and the streets department and everyone else on these, I guess surveillance cameras, if you will, in the hot spots in the neighborhood. Not planning on implementing them, across the entire neighborhood, but certainly in the areas where we've had, a lot of shootings, drug dealing, prostitution. But my concern is it pertains to police body cameras, and I'm certainly a proponent of this, but is really like an individual's right to privacy as well. And I'll give an example. So I sleep often, during the spring and fall seasons with my windows and sometimes my doors open. Last year, one of my neighbors who apparently doesn't realize that I do this, left the house and saw my front door was open, so they called the police, and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I have a latch on the front door, so it's secure, but nonetheless, it's open. So I also happen to have been sleeping in my underwear. So the police show up at my house, 6:30 in the morning, knock on my front door, anyone home? This is the police. Of course, I immediately go over to the door, but I'm standing up at the top of the stairs in my underwear. If the police were wearing body cameras, I see in the policy that they have, I don't know what I just did with that, but there's a section on enforcement-related contacts include the following. Would something like that, where they're responding to a 911 call simply for an open door, would that be considered a enforcement-related contact where the camera would be in use at that point in time? Even though, like, having an open door, to let breeze into your house is not an illegal activity. It's really not suspicious. If it were happening in St. Louis Hills, my neighbors probably wouldn't have called the police, right? But because of the neighborhood that I live in, they see an open door, it's suspicious. They don't, they care about their neighbors. They want to call and make sure that they're okay. But would that be considered, and therefore, would my, half-naked torso be, on a police, camera being used for evidence somewhere?
So I
Not that I'm ashamed of my body, but, I just think that that's a situation where your personal privacy becomes an issue.
And we had a little bit of a conversation about this before you came in. It potentially could be an incident that was caught on a body camera. What I struggle with, or the challenge that the technology is moving ahead faster than the laws. I think that's something that has to be addressed in Jefferson City. I think if we created a policy to say that was the case and somebody challenged the policy, there's a chance we could lose. And so I'd rather see a solution to that issue, because I think it's a valid issue and I think it's an important one, addressed at Jefferson City at a legislative issue, with a legislative solution and the Sunshine Law, than an individual policy which could be overturned by a judge.
I just, my concern is, there's certain, that's a pretty innocuous situation where, it's just, me in my underwear, but like, there's also situations with, domestic violence victims and things of that nature where, I have some really kind of serious concerns in terms of an individual's right to privacy. Because frankly, in today's digital age, once images or videos get out there, it's very difficult to get them back.
I agree. I agree, and I think the vulnerability is we could craft a policy that said, no, that's not releasable until we're challenged and then lose. That's why I think that for programs all over the state, not just our program here, there has to be guidance from the legislature in Jefferson City. Again, you know how judges are. If with a sympathetic cause, they're going to overturn a policy, and it could be releasable. So I'd rather address it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
And I agree with you. It needs to be addressed, and I don't think it's right. But I have to follow the guidance right now.
And I'll be wearing pajamas when I sleep with the windows open from now on. But I don't really see that addressed in here. I see the privacy concerns itself, but it doesn't really address those kind of, situations that may occur.
Oh, absolutely, and we talked about it a little bit. This is a human enterprise, and so there are going to be situations where the officers have their body cameras on, potentially if we have a body camera solution, that catch things. Google Maps catches things as they drive around the world filming, are going to catch things that may seem innocuous to us, but are going to be of interest to somebody else, and they're going to want that video. So it
just, and I don't know how secure these cameras are. I know in terms of their physical security, that's one thing, where there's chain of custody and everything else, but in this digital age with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything else, who's able to tap into these things, and if there's a rape victim, and the police show up, or a domestic violence victim, and
that's a great question.
Like that really becomes a concern for me, where they continually then become victimized because some sort of photograph or videotape, ends up on the internet.
So that's a great question, and I did not talk about that. The cameras have to be docked, hardwired, so they don't download wirelessly. And then the transmission of the videos from the docking station to a cloud-based solution is governed by CJIS, the FBI's arm, Computer Justice Information Services, about encryption and security in transmission. So with guidance from the federal government and the FBI, the transmission is as secure as anything that goes between the police department and the courts right now. So there is guidance. It's not done wirelessly. It's done hard. And then the transmission to the cloud follows the guidelines, the federal guidelines.
Even clouds can be tapped into, right? And so, I mean, I've read plenty of stories at this point where clouds have been tapped into, and private documents, photographs, et cetera, have been released out to the general public.
Systems can be hacked, yes.
I mean, and certainly if the State Department for the United States government can be hacked into, I'm pretty sure that our St. Louis Police Department servers and clouds could probably be hacked into as well. Not that I don't have full faith, that we're doing everything we can to protect it, but I think where there's a will, there's a way, especially in today's technology age, where technology advances every day, and sometimes government can't keep up with that. And so I have really big concerns about, all of that being digitized and, available for a hacker to use, which is really concerning, particularly for victims.
No, I agree. I agree. The best efforts are being made to secure the transmission of the data and that, but you're absolutely right. Pentagon's hacked, State Department's hacked, Sony's hacked, people get hacked.
Well, I was going to add, just so you know, on page 5, line 3, it says that the cameras would not be used during sex crimes or child abuse investigations to include statements of victims, witnesses, interaction with parents or victims. So, I mean, that might address the one about rape.
No, it doesn't, because they're showing up to a scene, so it's not an investigation, it's not, interrogating, it's not taking statements from victims and witnesses, it's simply showing up to the scene, and so the camera will be on when they show up to the scene, but then they can turn the camera off as soon as they understand the kind of layout of the scene.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that a half-naked person sitting there after being raped and victimized wouldn't be caught on camera, at least initially. And so that does not address that specific situation.
So, but, and
The next one under it.
just to give you a little bit of assurance, an ongoing investigation is protected from being released. So there is the opportunity during an ongoing investigation to protect that. Doesn't mean when the case is finally disposed of that it doesn't become available. But yeah, it's complicated, and that's why the attorneys get paid what the attorneys do to help navigate this for us.
Just a little bit frightening. Thank you.
Alderman Coder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along those lines, you know, in criminal prosecutions, the evidence relied on is often statements that would otherwise be hearsay but are exempted, excited utterances, present sense impressions, things of that nature. And these body cameras are uniquely positioned to kind of capture those statements, which are in the moment and often very truthful. Then they can change as time goes on. Do you have any examples so far of, in this pilot program, of these cameras capturing any evidence that was then, you know, used in a prosecution, capturing statements that then maybe changed down the road? Or can you point to any examples of that so far?
I am aware of some. The one that's on top of my mind, a sergeant wearing a body camera captured a confession of an individual that was used to get warrants issued and ultimately follow through on the prosecution. So the body cameras will provide a valuable tool in collecting evidence for prosecution. So I'm aware generally of them. I'm aware of one specifically, yes, they have done that.
Thank you. And in my previous job in the Circuit Attorney's Office, I can remember the constant frustration of trying to get in-car camera footage. Not that it wasn't available, but there was lengthy delays in getting that footage. As part of this process, are you sort of looking into how quickly that footage, both in-car and body camera, can be turned over to other law enforcement agencies to aid in investigations?
So in the budget that we're preparing right now has 3 positions, I believe, to help manage data around body-worn camera programs, around in-car cameras, because I do agree. As the program was implemented a couple of years ago, the support staff was never put in place. If we do roll out a solution that involves tens of hundreds of body cameras, certainly we'll need the staff to support it, and that should make that process go easier. So I have addressed that.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions? Alderman Ornowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chief.
How are you?
Sorry I come on the back end. So just a couple questions. When do you view these body cameras all coming into place where every officer is wearing one?
So I'll kind of just summarize it really quickly. We began a pilot program at the end of last year that was a 90-day pilot. We're just about at the end of that 90-day pilot. The pilot was done with sergeants because I have to negotiate this with police officers under their collective bargaining agreement. Sergeants are wearing the cameras. We're just about done. We're going to have a phase for public comment, and after that we'll complete a final report. If the guidance from the pilot program and the public comments point us in a direction of that, I will ask the SLPOA to sit down and negotiate this issue as it's outlined in the collective bargaining agreement. I am working with Paul Payne to identify funding sources. We'll have to do a full RFP process. We're still a little ways away from having an on-the-ground project right now.
Okay, I understand. So we're looking at a timeline, could be next 2 years or somewhere in there?
I don't
To
want
be
to.
realistic?
I don't want to make a projection
Right.
because I don't understand. I don't want to speak for the SLPOA.
Right.
I know they have concerns about it as well. It's not something that will be done this summer, certainly. If I see us sitting down with the SLPOA this summer, but if we decide to.
Right.
But it's not something I see in place even by the end of the year right now.
Okay, my next question is, as we know, the biggest majority of police vehicles have the dashboard cameras.
About 100. We have about 100 in-car cameras. It's about 100.
So you got like at least 6 to 8 in each district.
That might be a little bit high. I'm going to say
Right.
we're about half of the district fleet as about in-car cameras. About half.
So my question is, I hear a lot of things about, so if I'm a police officer and I pull a car over, you have it on the dashboard, plus you'll have it here. But, you know, I think it can't work both ways because a lot of people probably feel you shouldn't have a camera on them when they're talking, but in the same token, they want to have a camera on you at the same time. So, I mean, I guess my question I'm trying to get to, so when all this is in place and a car gets pulled over, so you got the car, you got the license there, you got the body camera on. So the days if you have an expired plate, or if you have a warrant out in a small, let's say, country club, Country Hills, so, you know, with things that's been going on, I guess there's no more breaks then, because they'd really have to do their job or they'd get accused of not doing it. And would that bring some repercussion?
So I think anytime a police officer does their job, I don't know what repercussion, I don't understand the repercussions.
Well,
of the
I don't
question.
want, you know, it seems to me like when these police cameras are all in place, say I get pulled over. I got expired plates, I got a traffic warrant somewhere. Most likely, and then everything being recorded and it's on there, if I get like, if they give me a warrant and go say, take care of this, you know, then I don't want to be accused of that I got a favor, you know, and I should have been arrested because I had a warrant out. But I know police use a lot of discretion on that. I just think at first I wasn't all in favor of body cameras, but I think the more I hear about it, and it works both ways, I'm kind of looking forward to it now because, you know, there's always two sides of a story, and with that you get the right side. So I'm actually looking forward to the body cameras now, and I think it'll help both ways. I know the cost is going to be expensive, so.
Yeah, it will, and I think body cameras have a future in law enforcement. The only thing that I would say about your statement about in-car and body cameras, I think it's a one or the other proposition. I don't think because of resource issues, because of money issues, we will have the ability to do both. So it's going to be a one or the other type solution. Again, to Alderwoman Spencer's point, the forward camera doesn't catch what happens in the back seat, where the in-car camera does, but the in-car camera doesn't catch the interaction that happened in the backyard. So there are pros and cons to both systems, but I do not see us being able to afford both in-car and body-worn cameras.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, and I hope that we can have you back to address some other issues. If you look over your right shoulder, there are a number of signs that are up, and I know that you can't talk about current investigations, but we have even deeper issues, and I know that I'm not the chair of this, and the chair would probably be mad if he knew that I would even bring this up. But we would like to have you back, and I'm going to ask that Alderman Kennedy have you back to discuss equality, fairness when it comes to how blacks and whites are disciplined in the department of promotions, and just how the resources are scattered throughout our city. For an African-American alderman that represents an African-American ward, I know that things happen in my ward, and crime is rampant, and that's not your fault. But the way that we police neighborhoods like mine, that's your fault. And so,
Well, give me a specific example that it's my fault. We police every neighborhood in the city equally, so I think it's unfair for you to make an allegation that we police your neighborhood differently than any other one without facts.
well, hold on. And see, that's why I didn't want to get in.
But you said that we police your neighborhood differently, and show me the data to support that we do, because we do not.
Okay, I'll show you data, and I'll make sure that we do a long. That I'll have Terry email you some information requests, and we'll go from there. So hopefully we'll have you back soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
We adjourn.